Now we're going to continue with the tissues. We're on the third tissue, which is muscular tissue or muscle tissue. They're specialized for contraction and they produce all body movement. The three types of muscle tissue include skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Skeletal muscle are large body muscles responsible for movement. Cardiac muscle is only found in the heart, and smooth muscle is found on the walls of the hollow contracting organs, blood vessels, urinary bladder, respiratory, digestive, and reproductive tracts. Skeletal muscle. The cells are long and thin. They're called muscle fibers. They cannot divide. And new fibers are produced by stem cells only. They're called myosatellite cells. This is a picture of skeletal muscle tissue and showing you the location and function. Next is cardiac muscle cells. They're called cardiocytes, and they form branching networks connected at intercalated discs, and they're regulated by pacemaker cells. And last is smooth muscle cells, and they're small and tapered, and they can divide and regenerate. Cardiocytes and skeletal muscle cells do not regenerate. This is an example and a picture showing you the cardiac muscle on the heart and where it's located. And here we see the smooth muscle. Now we go to neural tissue. This is also called nervous tissue or nerve tissue. It's specialized for conducting electrical impulses, and it senses the internal and external environment. It also processes the information and controls responses. Neural tissue is concentrated in the nervous system, and the central nervous system specifically, the brain and the spinal cord. That makes up 99 or 98% of the nervous tissue. There are two types of cells in neural tissue. There are neurons, those are the actual nerve cells, and they perform the electrical communication. Then neuroglia, they're supporting cells, and they repair and supply the nutrients to neurons. The parts of a neuron include the cell body that contains the nucleus and nucleolus, the dendrites that receive the incoming signals and information, and the axon, which is the long, thin extension of the cell body and carries the outgoing electrical signals to their destination. This is the picture or image of a typical neuron. Now, let's talk about tissue injuries and repair. Tissues respond to injuries to maintain homeostasis. And to restore homeostasis, they use 1, inflammation, and 2, regeneration. Inflammation is the inflammatory response. It's the first response to injury. The signs and symptoms of the inflammatory response include swelling, redness, heat, and pain. It can be triggered by trauma, and that's physical injury, or secondly, by infection or the presence of harmful pathogens. They can include bacteria, viruses, funguses. The damaged cells release chemical signals to the surrounding areas. As the cells break down, lysosomes release enzymes that destroy the injured cell and attack the surrounding tissue. Tissue destruction is called necrosis. And then necrotic tissues and cell debris or pus accumulate in the wound. An abscess is pus trapped in an enclosed area. Now, the process of inflammation includes a few things. Number 1, the injury stimulates the mast cells. That causes the release of histamine, heparin, and prostaglandins. Then there's a dilation of the blood vessels. That's for the purpose of increasing the circulation to the area. It does cause warmth and redness, but it also brings more nutrients, oxygen to the area, and removes waste. And then now the last part is called regeneration. This is when the injury or infection is totally cleaned up and the healing begins. The first process of regeneration is the fibrocytes move into the necrotic area and they begin to lay down new collagen fibers to bind together the area together, and they call this scar tissue. In the process of regeneration, new cells will migrate to the area or are produced by mesenchymal cells. Not all tissues can regenerate. For example, skeletal muscle tissue tends not to regenerate. Nerve tissue tends not to regenerate. Heart tissue, heart muscle does not regenerate well. All right, epithelial and connective tissues regenerate well, where cardiac cells and neurons don't regenerate well or regenerate poorly. This is the image basically showing you what we just went over. And you see the inflammation, you see the increased temperature, increased blood flow, increased phagocytosis, and the removal of waste, and then the regeneration process and repairing to get back to normal. Aging in the tissues. As a person ages, speed and efficiency of tissue repair decrease with age. This is due to a slower rate of energy consumption, metabolism in general, hormonal changes or alterations, and then reduced physical activity. Some other effects of aging include chemical and structural tissue changes. For example, thinning of the epithelia and connective tissue, an increased bruising and bone brittleness, joint pain and broken bones, cardiovascular disease, and mental deterioration. We have now completed Chapter 4 on tissues. We'll begin Chapter 5, the integumentary system, in the next segment.